Hi, I'm Adam Brooks Weber, and this is the third introductory video for The Merry Mystic, my weekly letter. The first two covered the merry and the mystic parts, but there's a third important component of the Merry Mystic, and that is skepticism, or let's say a cheerful questioning of authority. I am a Christian Merry Mystic. I am a student of the Christian traditions, and I try to be a follower of Jesus. Yet, I sometimes hesitate to describe myself as a Christian, because that calls to mind so many preconceptions for people. In particular, many of my fellow Christians have a very high respect for authority, which I don't share. Typically, they have very high respect for the authority of the Bible. They believe that every word of Scripture is both good and true, if understood correctly, and I just don't agree with that at all. To me, opening the Bible, it's like entering a conversation with my faith ancestors. They were wise people, interesting people. They knew things that it's worth remembering. But they weren't always right about everything. It's just sort of like sitting down for a conversation with my grandfather. Grandfather Weber was quite a character, an interesting man, wise on his own ground, knew a lot of things worth remembering, but I certainly didn't agree with him about everything. Now, I do love the Bible. I find it instructive and inspiring. In fact, if I were shipwrecked on a desert island, I think I could have just one book. Well, okay, to be honest, if I could have just one book, I would want it to be the book entitled How to Get Off Your Freaking Desert Island. But failing that, I'd want it to be the Bible, because it's instructive and inspiring and fascinating, and because if I had the Bible, I would always have someone to argue with. What I've just said about Scripture, I guess you could say sort of the same thing about any other focus of authority in my religious tradition. Some people have high authority for the respect of religious leaders, the minister, the pastor, the priest, the bishop, the pope. Some people have high respect for the authority of tradition, for the decisions made by ecumenical councils centuries ago. Some people have high authority for religious experience. Now, in the previous video, I talked about my own sense of the importance of religious experience, and I don't deny that. But at the same time, you've got to question it. You've got to question everything. Otherwise, you end up thinking that every coincidence is a message from God. I am, at base, a scientist. I used to be a professor of computer science, and I'm still a scientist. I'm a skeptic by training and by inclination. I believe that human beings have a great capacity for self-deception, which we always have to be guarding against. And I believe that one of the great gifts of the scientific revolution to humanity is the basic idea that the way to increase what you know is to question what you know. So, if you're a person who has a very high sense of authority, of Scripture, or religious leaders, then the Merry Mystic probably will make you mad. Maybe you should subscribe anyway, just so that you always have someone to argue with. One of my favorite characters in the New Testament is the disciple of Jesus known as Thomas, the twin. Sometimes we call him Doubting Thomas. There's this story about how the other disciples, Thomas's friends, have seen Jesus after his death, and Thomas doubts them. To me, this is a very reassuring story. Reassuring for all of us doubters, I guess. Because I have doubts that make Thomas look positively credulous. The thing I love about this story is the way Jesus treats Thomas. He doesn't excommunicate him, doesn't kick him out, welcomes him, receives him, loves him, and offers him exactly what he needs. That's good news for all of us doubters. I wrote a hymn partly about Thomas, which I'd like to share with you. I am a pastor of a church in the United Church of Christ. It's the Clare Congregational United Church of Christ here in Clare, Michigan. If you're ever in Clare, a beautiful little church, please stop by. Sometimes I write hymns for my people to sing. We use a fairly progressive hymnal, the New Century hymnal, but still sometimes I can't find what I want. I can't find a hymn which is both theologically progressive and reasonably easy to sing, and so I write my own. I'm going to use sheet music here today because I don't usually memorize these. Things that I perform in concerts or when I travel to give lectures, why I memorize those, but usually not my own hymns. This one is called Welcome Thomas, Doubts and All. Welcome Thomas, doubts and all, peace be with you in this hall. Cautious thinker, you concluded, all your friends were so deluded. Resolutely undecided, did you fear you would be chided for your stubborn skeptic soul? Welcome Thomas, be made whole. Welcome Sarah, never fear, laughter too is welcome here. You were quick, but God was quicker when you tried to hide your snicker, gag your giggle, choke your chortle in the face of the immortal. Did you fear you'd made a gaffe? Welcome Sarah, free to laugh. Welcome Jonah, home at last, all your trials and troubles past, when you fled from your vocation, when that friendly old cetacean coughed you up and set you straighter on the path to your Creator. Did you fear God's love would cease? Welcome Jonah, be at peace. Welcome friends and neighbors all, though we stumble, trip and fall, though our blundering be chronic, though our wisdom embryonic, what we see now dim and darkly, one day soon will stand out starkly. Children of the One are we, sister, brother, blessed be. So, sister, brother, blessed be. And this seems like a good place to end this video about skepticism with a verse that's all about cheerful confession of our own ignorance. Please scroll down and leave us a comment. Do you have doubts that make Thomas look credulous? And have your doubts made you feel unwelcome in church? Or maybe you have a much higher respect for authority than I do. And you want to argue with me about it, by all means, go down and argue about that. If you're viewing this video somewhere other than on adambrooksweber.com, please go over there. You can sign up for the Merry Mystic and leave a comment. And now, my dear friends, God bless you. May the Spirit of God help us all to keep the steel traps of our minds open. Bye now.